So Michelle, I love how you explain the difference between intuition and goal setting and how they work together because from my experience, I recognize this is my goal, but how? How do I want to achieve that goal? And and for example, as we are I want to say transitioning and going higher in this spiral frequency that's taking us upwards. And, some of the stuff that we're leaving behind as we do that. What I loved about what you said, and it reminded me that what is that value or that power word that I want to invoke during this experience of working towards my goals?
Hmm. Yeah. And people don't think about quality.
Mhm.
Again, it's that linear path. They're thinking about how to get from point A to point B. But it's like the turning of the head, and if you're integrated, it's that same idea in that you have so much more that you can bring to the moment. And I just find when people say mindfulness, it's nice because people are stopping. But some people go, I need to be mindful. So they go inside themselves. And what we learned in Tai Chi is um, you're not in the Tai Chi class for yourself. You come for yourself, but you're actually not there for that. You're actually there for everyone else in the group because without you, your input would not be there. And the group needs your input. So it's a different way of looking at it. And for me, when you go mindfulness, it kind of pulls you into yourself and disconnects you from everybody else. And the idea of intention changes that quality because it's your connection with other people that's going to improve the quality of what's going on. And it might not be people, it could be nature, could be your engagement with the plants in the garden, it could be how you walk down the pathway with the trees, if you're even listening to the leaves as they're blowing, what the branches are doing or what the gravel sounds like underneath your feet. Um, that's the quality piece, and that's where intention is beyond that goal piece, for me anyway.
I totally agree. Same for me, and kind of like the card that you pulled today for the both of us. I just love your cards and what you've done with them. It's kind of like that full circle. Mindfulness is almost a lost word, like anything else that's been overused.
Hmm.
And it, it, I think there's a fluidity of um, when we are there for for ourselves, honoring that we're alive, honoring that there's something inside of us that does want to express itself, then that becomes really engaging. There's I want to say a value there, an appreciation there. I like what you said. You're not just there for yourself, you're an important piece for the group. That just brings such validity to I want to say trusting yourself.
Hmm.
You are worthy, you are important. And as a human species, we're letting go of, what I would call the human condition, which is dropping, that old story and dropping especially the feelings related to not being enough.
Hmm. And isn't
And
it different when you start thinking about, I went to class because my input was important? That's a lot
exactly.
different than I'm lying on the couch, it's cold outside, I don't really feel like going, it's already dark, so I'm just going to stay here because it's comfortable and I'm going to watch TV. That's an easy choice you could make. But at the same time, when you go, I'm responsible to the group, my input is valuable, and just my being there might change somebody else's day. Okay, that's more important than the show that I want to watch on TV. It really changes why you would want to get up off the couch. Why would you want to engage? Why would you want to connect with that group? And I know my Tai Chi students, we've been together, some of us 14 years. When someone's missing, it's a big hole. And If you don't see them for a couple of weeks, you're really wondering what's going on. And it's not that we really talk about each other's days or what everybody's up to. We do a little bit of chit chat that way, but we just know each other energetically from how we engage in the room, and it's a missing link. And I don't think people quite catch that. If you're at the gym working out, you're working out for you and you're really thinking about your workout. And in Tai Chi, we're not thinking about the workout. We're gaining strength, they're gaining flexibility, but we're really about staying together with each other, watching out of the corner of our eyes, being observant, noticing, um, yeah, and engaging.
So expansive and so and this is the piece that gets very exciting because we're contributing and it becomes a want to rather than a have to, like you say, like you want to get off the couch because you know the quality of your evening is just going to be so different.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Yeah. It's just it's just so inspiring, right? Even getting out of bed in the morning, same idea. You think about the quality of the day that you want to have. And when you start thinking about the quality, then it's like, well, who am I going to meet? And that's a lot different than I have this to-do list
yeah.
that needs to get done, which is your inner box. And then it's like, here's the quality I want. All of a sudden, somebody calls you and you, yes, I'm running errands, I'll meet you for tea. Or, yes, I do have time for lunch, let's go do that. There's just so many ways that that was not on your to-do list. And if you stayed linear to the to-do list, you'd miss the quality. And that's what I love about my day. Yes, I have a to-do list. I'm not always going to follow the to-do list, but usually at the end of the day, all the important pieces got done, as well as probably double to triple what came in. That really led to enhancing my whole day and also expanding my projects because I only had the knowledge I had and I needed the conversations with the other people in order to bring it bigger because I just didn't have the knowledge. I didn't know what I was going to ask to get it. That's the other piece.
You know, I just love this way of life. I love it because, you know, uh, life, you know, can be difficult. It can be painful.
Mhm.
Uh, and so to have this kind of perspective is the energy to hold that difficulty or to hold that pain and grow with it as opposed to become, I want to say, defeated by it, right?
Mhm. Mhm. And that's one of the other pieces too. I think the therapeutic touch when I trained in that
Mhm.
and being able to sit at a bedside
Yeah.
and not just sit at the bedside worried
Yes.
or anxiety or grief, but to sit at the bedside and to be able to say, how can I help this person? Might be rub their feet, might be hold their hand, might be have a conversation, might be help them transition. But at least you can say, I have this capability to transform with them rather than to just sit and be powerless.
You
And
nailed it. You nailed it. It's the moving from powerless to powerful.
mhm, mhm, yeah, and that takes fear out.
I totally agree. You know, I just recognize more and more as I grow, I so appreciate and I never, you know, it's like, wow, as I grow in awareness, as I grow in allowing and inviting and knowing infinite intelligence is inside me no matter what, and surrendering to letting it lead, it just dissolves the fear.
Mhm,
And I had no idea how much fear had been a part of my life. None really, until I really started looking at it from a different perspective, which is this one. And it was like, oh, to have this kind of, I want to say, awareness, surrender to touch places inside I never ever thought I could touch.
mhm,
Like there are no words.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that? And I just
Mm-hmm.
really appreciate um, that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
There,
like a whole world. It's like literally, when they talk about being reborn, it's like, wow, you know? and
yep,
then
yep.
and then you keep doing it and you go, oh, it gets even better than this. Yes. Whoa. And it's like, okay, now I understand the phrase, how good can it get? And it's like, isn't that an interesting question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you have that day that just like completely flows, and you get to the end of the day and you go, wow, I had
Yes.
no idea when I was getting up this morning where
Yes.
I was going to finish today.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Those days are so exquisite. And then there are the days when they're not like that, where I've worked a little bit harder. And that's because I've tried to, with my head, solve more problems than if I had been more in flow. So,
So can we just talk about courage here for a minute? Because I've just
mm-hmm,
gone through that recently.
mm-hmm,
And there was something, and it was like I could hear the spirit saying to me, Cheryl, just stop. I got it. I got this. And I tell you, it took every bit of trust, faith, surrender, you name it. It was like, okay, okay, I'll do it. And I have to say, I'm still in that process. And how wonderful to have, challenges in your life and you can be completely at peace with them as they just unfold. Like,
mm-hmm,
cool. It's so, oh,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the T's that we have is called the Mission for Change Community Tea. And that is actually a fundraiser for the Moyo family in Malawi. And there's 23 of them. There's only three adults, only one male adult. And the man he oversees everything, but he's not been well. And watching their lives as they go through their drought and the loss of their house with the tsunami that went through, and what they don't have, what they struggle for every day. And yet they find this inner strength and this trust and belief that somehow something's going to happen that'll allow them to continue to go forward. And I think, because it's easy for us to say where we are, even though we have hardships, we feel their hardships, we really are so privileged, and to understand how we can have our golden days. But what other people who have real hardships to find their golden days, and how deep they dig to trust and have faith. It's truly amazing. Yeah.
and I think that when I just recently went through a similar experience going, wow, look at this level of trust in someone who has what we would say so little. So here in the West, then I think our willingness to go into these places um, and surrender them,
Mm-hmm.
because we're so fortunate that okay, we're not like looking, wandering around looking for some food. We have so much. So I think there's really something very powerful that's going on right now, which is when we meet fear, to recognize that our opportunity um, to really face it, to tell the truth about it
Mm-hmm.
so that it can move, it can resolve. And because we're all connected, the impact we're having on, the collective conscious, the collective unconscious. Carl Jung talked about this. David Hawkins and his information talks about this. So I think there's a real coming together here of courage and being able to say out loud together as we're all going through change that, uh, I'm going to do this on behalf of humanity.
Hmm.
It's my contribution because when we're letting go of fear and those ties that bind, we'll be guided and directed in the ways of the action piece. And what comes first is this profound humility of recognizing, this bigger picture of what we're really, really up to here.
Hmm. Hmm. And that's where the movement, right? Because if you're sitting in that fear, you just need to move.
Exactly.
That movement is going to take you to that new place. And you might not even notice fear disappearing. It just isn't there anymore and you moved on, which is great. But if fear is the way you've always acted, it may feel new. And so then that opportunity to realize what it can feel like to be not in fear and how easy it was for you to move from one to the other. Yeah,
Exactly. I,
yeah.
I just was teaching something this morning. Let me find it. I think yeah, I wrote it down. I think I was listening to Tony Robbins, and it just speaks to what you're saying here. To um, the best way to share something in your body, uh, or here it is. Emotion is really created by the way you move your body.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
your flavor of doing this again, I just think it invites such you've created a movement here. You've been a part of a movement because you listened to your intuition, you trusted, and you've gone through your fair share of hard times and come out the other side so committed. And that's what's real.
Hmm. 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 I was thinking about the fear, and fear is in the water element from Chinese medicine. It's in kidney and bladder. And one of the muscles is the psoas muscle. And the psoas connects in the center of the spine, and then it branches out and attaches your leg to your body. So it has a really significant role. But it has a dual purpose role because it allows you to lift your leg up, but also allows you to move forward. So at the end of the first episode of the podcast, season 4 podcast, I introduced the seated Danyu, and I had people move forward into their feet and then back.
Mhm.
That's taking that psoas muscle, contracting it, and releasing it. And
Mm.
right there, you're taking the fear and you're rocking it.
Oh,
And you have that opportunity to rock it right out. And people don't think about that. They're stuck at their computer working on things. That muscle is locked. It's a big muscle. It's a really, really important muscle. And it's locked. So what happens?
mm-hmm.
It's so easy for fear to grow. And if you're sitting all the time and you don't actually do that release and expand and contract, you just keep holding on to the fear. And it starts to just build. And it's really hard to get rid of once it's built. And then you think it's the only way because that's all you know. But how freeing is it to move yourself, it releases, and then you don't even notice that it's disappeared. That's pretty freeing, and you didn't have to consciously think about it, make it happen, push it away. Just some people will try to do that and try to control it from the brain, but your body took care of it. Yeah.
I love this. This is so, again, like simple, easy, effective, and how lovely it gets us out of our heads, out of the story, just so that we can just be fully present with the energy that's moving. And I love how you said that, rocked it, because In the past, I used to put so much judgment on myself. The fact that I even had fear. It's like, what's the matter with you? And it's like, oh, but so you get stuck between a rock and a hard place, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love what I learned from you today.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, it's like, wow, right?
Yeah. And
Wow.
it's like that for me every day because when I go in to teach a Tai Chi class, I never teach the same thing twice. And I have as much realizations as my students,
Yes.
even though we're doing the same move. We've done it for 14 years. We worked on that move many different ways. But today, when we came in, collectively, somehow we were in a certain position and we start to go through it. And because I flow with that intuition all the time,
Yes.
out of my mouth comes these things and it's like, wow, I never looked at the move that way before. And it happens every class. So it's
Wow.
like such a gift. And so I think, when you're not in flow, you're not connecting into your intuition. And it's like, how hard is that? And how stagnant could it become? And effortful to find joyful moments when I can just go into a movement, no expectation. And you're thinking teachers too. Teachers are always going to be prepared. But I've just so learned to just read the energy of the room and
Yes.
know that you're going to know where to go next.
Yes.
And the most amazing things come out. And lots of times my students will say, wow, I guess I didn't know that move at all. And it was
Uh,
like, you did know the move, and you knew it in that context, you knew it in another context, but today you know it in this context. And where's that going to take you for next week if you go home and actually work with it? Some people won't. Some people wait till next week. But for those that actually go home and work with it a little bit, they usually learn and discover more about themselves in that process. Yeah.
and that's the key, right? Is continuing to work with it. And uh
And it's, now get this word right, cumulative.
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 Cumulative. Yeah, the cumulative, right?
I am stuck on that word. I don't know. I have a problem with that one. But
Yeah.
the piece is that when you're doing it all the time, it builds, it grows, it magnifies. But if you hit it once, walk away for several
Yeah.
weeks and then try to hit it again, you say it doesn't work for me. No, because it takes that evolving piece for it to start to figure out what it wants to do and for the energy flow to really start to come through the body and to be recognized and and for you to be able to trust it, have the courage to look at some things differently. I really enjoy going, is it true? That's my favorite. Is it true? Maybe it is, but if it isn't true, what is the truth then? And that's led me down a lot of interesting paths when I start questioning. And then the discoveries too, because that intuition piece goes, oh, you're not going to believe that anymore. Okay. And then new information comes in to change perspective. That's also really interesting.
And yeah, because we're constantly outgrowing ourselves, right?
Hmm.
And I think it's Gay Hendricks who described in The Big Leap, and I thought it was a wonderful expression. It's kind of like as we outgrow ourselves, we kind of hit that glass ceiling within ourselves, and eventually over time we get very good at not needing like to stop suddenly and go, oh no, what I'm going to do, no. So I love what you've described here. It's a metaphor for just to keep growing. And I think once we accept that, you know, uh, as if I'm feeling fear, okay, somewhere I'm not trusting this higher intelligence inside of me. And again, to come back just to this rocking motion, it's just like, isn't that cool?
Hmm.
Like, because I've been rocking ever since you taught me. And it's like, whoa,
Hmm.
okay. Well,
Hmm.
there's something real cool going on here, right? The body knows.
The body knows. Yeah. From the perspective of, as you fall into the feet, push into the feet to come back, you engage all the organ systems through the bottom of your foot. So you have
Ah,
that piece. So these are just structural knowledge pieces, right? So there's lots of other things. But then you also have the foot sensors on the bottom of the foot. And depending on how the foot sensors are functioning, that tells you how you'll be thinking, what kinds of decisions you'll be making. So if anything's shut off, you'll be thinking a certain way. So that back and forth action is boosting you in another way, which makes dynamic sitting at your desk really, really interesting because you could be changing so much. And then
great.
you and then you go, you do the push in the foot, the tailbone rolls just automatically. It's not like you have to roll the pelvis or anything. It just turns to line up, and that's how you get a straight spine. But it
Ah,
rolls to bring you to straight. And we don't think about that piece. And for me, I was focused on the tailbone rolls. But when I was studying with Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, who is uh, occupational therapist, I think is what she did, and a dancer. Anyway, understands the body incredibly. She described it as opening certain sections just at the sacrum and the lumbar spine. And I thought, oh, that's interesting because my focus had been tailbone. Her focus was a little bit higher up. But yeah, you create this space. And
yeah.
now that you've created this space, the frequencies, yeah, exactly. So as you're squirming in your seat, it's like, yeah, you start vibrating at a different
Signaling.
frequency.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, wow. And that's only the little pieces that we know. There's
Yeah.
all the other stuff that's happening that we don't understand yet. Energetically, things are going on. It's just, yeah, it's so interesting. But yeah, that action is so valuable. And that's where the seated form of Tai Chi too, it teaches us so much about who we are and how we function that when we go to do the standing form of Tai Chi, you're not going to feel those things in quite the same way, but you can do the patterns differently. And so it's a different way of understanding. And a lot of people think they're cheating if they sit down. But for me, it's the richness that comes out of sitting down. And how much can I discover? And then how can I transform that into what I want to do in my standing version? Yeah.
Well,
There we
I,
go.
yeah, there we go. That was amazing. I love the synchronicity of what drew us together and the synchronicity of what we talked about today and the ownership of sovereignty that comes from the deep listening, the deep allowing, and it just there's one word that really comes to mind right now, and it's and the best definition of this one word that I've ever heard is from Madame Blavatsky herself. Uh, the creator or the kind of leader of the movement of theosophy, bringing, this Eastern wisdom to the West way back when in the late 1800s. And here's the word magic, which is wisdom applied. That was her definition. And doesn't that kind of like,
Hmm.
wow, now we're like, as a kid, yeah, I always would put myself like on a magic carpet, think, oh, I wonder where I could do or where I go or what I could do. And when we're working with realms like this, we're working with imagination, intuition, we're working with the unconscious, we're working with metaphor, and we're also working with, I want to say, this deeper vibrancy of life that can't help but come through us because we took the baby steps so that this cumulative effect could occur, so that the quantum leaps we've been wanting are happening. And it's just okay, rinse and repeat, just keep doing it. And who knows where we're going to go next, Michelle?
Right?
Like, where are we going to next? Like, it's like, whoa, look what happened today. Okay, I wonder what's next.
That's where the harmony blends and the harmony coasters. I'm looking down at them because I've got the tea on one side, I got the coaster beside me. The Nolative, which is the conference that I'll be heading to in Tenerife in May, they pick their topic And then the piece is you can't have presented it any of the information before.
Cool.
It
Cool.
is. Well, and
Yeah.
you could easily pull something out that, you know, you've been playing with and tweaked it and you could present it because you've never presented it before. You could do that. But for me, the challenge this year when they said unwinding trauma was to say, okay, we've got lots of people working on unwinding trauma. But what happens if I can pull my very best tools? What would that mean? And that was a whole year of discovery. And I thought I was finished. We had some pictures that were going to work. We had a formula, using the formula, the bioenergetic wellness formula, pulling it all together. And then the T's said, "You didn't create us." I was like, wow, okay. So how many tea blends do I need? So it was 6 tea blends, and they came together like so quickly. It was so interesting how they came along, and the messaging and the way the formula came together. So I'm saying all that because if I had just set my goal that I'm going to talk about unwinding trauma at the conference, I could have done that. But the richness of my experience this year, as I've collaborated with different people, talked about it, played with the concepts, worked in and out of them, a card deck, or the coasters got created, the teas got created, that never would have happened. And I could have had some really nice tea blends because people ask me for custom made blends, and then I'm making new ones for the season kind of thing. But there's such a delight in having cultivated 6 blends that come together to walk people through trauma. Like, who would have thought of that?
Oh,
You know, and it's just, you look at that and you go, okay, that's the richness of being able to play and not be stuck in your head that I can solve the unwinding trauma with the knowledge that I have, but to be open to say, help me figure out what I need, what's missing in all the protocols that we currently have, where people are lined up to try to find a psychologist or a psychiatrist or some kind of counselor that can help them, but the list is so long. Okay, what do we have? How can we make it accessible? And then seeing what happened. So that's the piece where I go, thank you very much to the conference for setting that stipulation. And we're not all listening to the same old repeats. We're finding new information and pulling ourselves along in a new way. Yeah. And then the other piece of that was, how could I ever afford to get to Tenerife? And it was like, I'm going to find a way. I'm going to find a way, and I'm going to trust the universe is going to make it happen so I can be there. And yeah, that's how it's delivering.
well, again, I love this because I've been working with something similar. It's like, okay, vibrationally, this already exists. So, uh, what do I need to know or do to be in this vibration more effectively, more consistently? And it's like, well, and it's like, oh, okay, just drop anything that isn't that. And it's like, okay. And it's I think it's an art form. We talked about something earlier, the artistry of life.
Mm-hmm.
And so how lovely, like what we're really up to here. And it reminds me of go all the way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what both you and I are up to here. And it's like we're going all the way. And it's like there's an expression, a man called Lester Levinson, who I just loved. He was the creator of the Sedona method way back when. When you read some of his original stuff, it just speaks to what he was talking about way back when, which is uh, going all the way is either impossible or effortless.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's that kind of, okay, I know what I really want. So just, and again, it's those baby steps, but eventually they add up to, okay, I'm doing it. So I love that you're going, yep, I'm speaking. This is what I created. And it's, it's on its way here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's in motion.
Mm-hmm. And then the other piece is, and I'm sure it's the same for you. You've created it, you've worked with it, you've played with it, but it has its own personality and it's going to give back. It's going to continue to show other sides of itself because we aren't going to be stuck with, because I created it this way, it needs to be used this way.
Exactly.
You hand it out and you say, what do you do with it? And what does it do back for you? And grow from that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so cool because now we're kind of losing that identity of the self and having the experience of this energy being me.
Mm-hmm.
And is there even really a me as we more and more work with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is probably why I had the dream about you that day. It was like, whoa, I meet you, we hit it off, we talk, and then the next day is this really powerful dream, and it's like, whoa, okay, well, this is very cool. So how exciting, I'm just speaking off the top of my head right now, but how exciting that uh we truly are creating the future as it emerges from this place as you described. It has its own energy or personality, whatever you want to call it, frequency, and it's like there are no words to describe this because it's a whole new way of being.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Wow. I know. There, we've just done another podcast.
Part two.
These were the after notes. This was the kind of like the that was so good. We got a debrief here, right?
Exactly. Exactly.